lessons learned, or passionate ideas. Every opinion expressed here is strictly that of the person who gives it. Let us consciously and lovingly agree to disagree if that does not resonate with us. The topic for today, again, is upgrading your energy. And Alan Ziga is our presenter. Alan, do you have a bio?
I don't.
Okay, so you're going to have to do it for yourself here.
Yeah, I'll make it work.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Just this.
A little bit. Perfect.
How's that?
A little bit higher. There we go. So I'm just going to hold it. So hi, everyone. So happy to be up here today. My topic is upgrading your energy. And I want to start with this little experiment I read about. This was like 12 years ago. And they had these Qigong masters basically project their energy at a strand of DNA. And they were able to unwind and wind it. I thought that was really interesting. But then the experimenters, they took basically the study a little bit further. They had the Qigong masters go all the way across the country. I think it was a different set of Qigong masters. It was all the way thousands of miles away. And what they found was when they projected their energy at the DNA, even though they were a couple thousand miles away, they were still able to make the DNA wind and unwind. So it seemed to be that distance didn't matter. That energy was able to influence that DNA regardless of how far away they were. And they were able to do it instantly. I remember this other study that I looked into. It was around, which one was this? Because I have a few really good ones. Yes, it was this one where they basically were able to see people's energy fields, because we all have an invisible field of energy around our body. And they saw that when two people interacted with each other, that their energy actually exchanged, that they actually saw the energy of one person affect the other. And this is what happens in our everyday lives. When we're around people, like our energy influences each other, even if we don't realize it. And what I found funny too was there's this other experiment where these people were separated by a distance. They were miles apart. And these were they had person A and person B. And person A would think of person B. And they had a whole bunch of electrodes hooked up to their body. And they found that when person A thought of person B's body, they actually had physiological changes. Like they changed, like their pupil dilation, heart rate. They actually saw changes in person, even though they were separated by a distance. So it just goes to show you that distance doesn't matter. One other experiment that I thought was really cool was they basically, have you ever had the feeling that someone was looking at you? We've all kind of had that feeling. And some people was like, oh, it's just a coincidence. But no, I can literally feel when someone looks at me. And they've actually done quite dozens of experiments on this. Is when someone looks at you, you actually have a change in your body. This one guy, he did like 34,000 people. It was tens of thousands of people he did the study on. And he's actually separated them miles apart. And he had a camera in one person's room. So person B had a camera in their room, and they just sat there for a half hour. And they had person A, every so often they would look at them on the camera. They were nowhere near each other. And whenever person A would look at person B on the camera, person B, they actually had changes in their body. Like I said, pupil dilation, their blood pressure would change, heart rate, skin temperature, everything would literally change. And they had no idea that this was happening. So the question is, why is that? What's going on here? Like, why would somebody, even though they're a distance apart, have changes when a person thinks of them? And the answer to that is energy. Because at the end of the day, everything you see is made of energy. All of us are made of energy. And all energy vibrates. So everything you see has a different vibration. Even our thoughts have different thoughts, have different vibrations. Different emotions we have different vibrations. So more positive emotions, more feel-good emotions like gratitude, love, joy, peace, those tend to have a higher vibration. And lower vibrational emotions tend to not feel good. So a low vibrational emotion would be like anger, guilt, shame, fear. So those emotions, they don't feel good, and those are low vibrational emotions. So the other thing is people, all of us are vibrating. Every person has a different vibration. So people who are in a higher vibration, they tend to be happier. They tend to be healthier. Their organs are healthier. They tend to have more synchronicities. They tend to find that parking spot when they need it most, things just tend to work out better for them. And they found that people with low vibrations, they tend to be less healthy. Their organs don't, work as well. The things don't function as well. And interestingly enough, when we're in a high vibration, or people with higher vibrations, they also found that they have bigger energy fields, because we all have an invisible field of energy around our body. And like I mentioned before, and when we're feeling love or gratitude, like that energy field is actually bigger. We're better protected, and our energy flows more efficiently too, because energy flows through our body all the time, and that's how it's supposed to be. Now, when people are feeling like shame or guilt, especially if they get stuck in there, like if you're just in there for an hour or so, it's one thing. But when they get stuck in there long term, it actually diminishes the energy field around your body when you're stuck in those negative emotions. And it shrinks the energy field, and you become more susceptible to other people's energies, to disease, all kinds of issues. And so one way, so I want to basically go into a few different ways that we can expand our energy field, upgrade our energy, and raise our vibration. And I want to go into some things that lower our vibration and diminish our energy field, and what you can do to avoid them. So I want to start with so there's this little heart exercise that is supposed to expand your energy field, where you put your focus on your heart, and you can close your eyes. And if you just take a deep breath for 5 seconds, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and keeping your focus on your heart space, and then breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then as you're doing that, you do that a couple times, keep focusing on your heart. And when you focus on your heart, it actually starts producing more heartfelt, high vibrational emotions. That's just a natural thing that happens. And as you're doing that, you can just think of something you're grateful for, or someone you love, just something that makes you feel good. And so you feel that as you're breathing, you just do that for a minute. And just by doing that for a minute actually expands your energy field. And it helps your immune system, it helps your brain function, it helps all of that. So just doing that for a minute, you can do that a few times a day. I was going to go through it here, but I have a lot to say, so I don't know if I'll have time. But yeah, definitely do that. And it genuinely helps the energy flow through your body better. And if you do this repeatedly, it trains you to start feeling better as well. But the thing I really want to get into is because there's a lot of people who have a lot of repeating patterns. Bad things keep happening to them over and over again, or certain people keep getting medical conditions over and over again. And oftentimes you wonder why. And the reason for that is this thing called trauma. So trauma is, trauma is energy, in low vibrational energy that gets stuck in your body. Or another way of saying trauma is basically it's very stressful emotions that your body keeps producing even after the thing that caused those emotions is gone. So you have something stressful happen, really stressful, and then it's gone. And you're completely safe. There's no issue, no reason to feel negative emotion, but your body keeps producing those negative emotions. And there's nothing around to cause it. And so that's trauma. It's your body holding on to those negative emotions, basically, and it gets trapped in the body. And the issue with trauma is it basically blocks the flow of energy. So energy, again, is supposed to flow. That a healthy person has energy flowing through their body, but trauma, it literally blocks the energy from flowing through your body. And that causes all kinds of health issues. And you can even see if someone's energy field, when they have trauma, especially if it's like serious trauma, like their energy field, there's like a dent in their energy field when there's really serious trauma. And a lot of people have a lot of different traumas. So I want to talk about like how we accumulate trauma and then how we can get rid of it, at least a couple ways, because there's lots of ways. But one of the, and also trauma, it also causes hormone disruption as well. So trauma, because, we all have hormones that we need that flow through, chemicals through our body that promote health. We need it for like sleep, metabolism, digestion. And actually trauma literally produces, first off, it kind of blocks the good hormones from being produced, even if you're not experiencing the trauma. And what it does is it produces stress hormones, and it messes up the function of your body and your organs. So that's another thing about trauma. So how do we get trauma? So there's actually a lot of ways. I'm just going to go through 3 of the big ones. But one of the ways is they call it acute trauma. So that's from just a situation, from a single event. And then something happens and it's so stressful that, it produces all these negative emotions, and then boom, the event's gone. And it could be years later and your body's still producing the emotions from that thing, even though it's gone. So a good example, and I've mentioned this before, is if there's a little kid and his older brother is supposed to be babysitting him. And his older brother, and it's nighttime, his parents are out on date night, and his brother, instead of babysitting him, hides, turns off all the lights. Now the little kid's wondering, what's going on? This little kid's like 3 years old, and they're wondering, like, what's going on? I'm scared. It's dark. All of a sudden, the older brother pops out with the clown mask and starts chasing them around the house. And the kids are freaking terrified. You know, one of those evil clown masks too. And they're running around the house, and the child is, you know, it's mortified. And then boom, it's done. Never happens again. But guess what? That child's not going to forget that. Like that was so emotionally scarring. It could be 20 years later, and that child is still going to remember, even if it's not conscious, it's still going to get stored in the body. So whenever it starts to get dark, guess what? That kid's going to, even though they're an adult now, they're going to freak out. When they see a cute clown, now they're going to be like, no, they're going to get scared. Guess what else? They were alone. They were 3 years old. They were alone. So guess now what they're going to have a fear of? Being alone. So now they're alone, and then they're just sitting in their car driving, nothing, everything's fine. All of a sudden they start having a panic attack out of nowhere. Guess what? That's from that a single event when they were 3. So that's an example of acute trauma. So from one incident, and your body holds on to those emotions. So the other type of trauma is, they call it chronic trauma. And I've mentioned this in a couple of my talks before, but chronic trauma is when you felt an emotion for so long, your body holds on to it. So like if your parents were constantly, maybe you were a teenager, you don't have to be a kid. You can be an adult, you can be a teenager, but most of it comes from when we're a kid. But even if you're a teenager and maybe there's a couple of years where your parents are all constantly arguing, and nonstop, and you have a series of unfortunate events, and you're constantly sad. This happens for 2 years, and then finally life starts getting better. You're like, oh, you know what? I can be happy again. But because you were sad for 2 years, your body holds on to those emotions. And so whenever you do start to feel better, you know, maybe you're driving, you're starting to feel good, you know, life's good. All of a sudden, your body's so used to feeling sad, it's going to start sending you sad thoughts. It's going to start attracting sad things into your life because it was so used to feeling that. It's like anything, you know, when we do something a lot of times, we start to build a habit around it. So that's the same with emotions. We feel an emotion for so long, our body starts to hold on to those. So even when we want to change, our body's like, no, you're going to start feeling this way again because it's so used to it. So emotions are just like habits. Your body, you know, they stick when you feel it for too long. So, and I want to get into a third type of trauma as well, but I want to talk about that a little bit after. But what we can do is, so with trauma, because a lot of people, they try to, it's uncomfortable. Negative feelings are uncomfortable. And so what most people try to do is when they start feeling it, they'll go on social media just to escape the feeling. Some people, you know, unfortunately, they get into alcohol. A lot of times that's why. And sometimes it's not so bad. And other times people get addicted to it because they're trying to escape the feeling. They found that most people who do get addicted to drugs is because of trauma and them trying to escape the feeling. Not all the time, but a good majority. And but the thing is, though, is when you get on social media, when you drink alcohol, you're not actually releasing the emotion because all of our emotions want to be felt. You've heard the term "feel it to heal it," and that's where that comes from. So when it comes to like trauma and other like things that keep coming up over and over again, like negative emotions, like and trauma is an example. Like you're just sitting there, and then all of a sudden you start having disturbing thoughts, or these negative feelings just come out of nowhere. That's an example of trauma. So what you can do is instead of like trying to like push them down or push them away, because when you push them down, they just boom, they're always going to come back up, boom, boom, and they're going to cause health issues, all kinds of issues. So what you can do is just address them. When they come up, just let yourself feel them. And it sounds counterintuitive. You're like, wait a minute, but I'm not law of attraction. I might attract bad things. It doesn't exactly happen that way in this case. So when the trauma comes up, you want to just literally let yourself feel it. And it's going to be uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. But if you just focus on it, like, and the important thing is to not get lost in your thoughts. Like, don't think about, you know, just literally like drop into your body and let yourself feel it, even if it's for 5 minutes. And as you let yourself feel that, and it might get more intense, it might move around, and that's good. If it gets more intense, that means it's releasing. If it starts moving around, that also means it's releasing. So just 5 minutes, focus on it. And as you do it, it starts releasing from the body. And then as it releases from the body, the energy is able to flow more easily. And like I said, it's uncomfortable, but it works. And you might think like, oh, it might manifest if I focus on it. But as you focus on it and it's releasing, it's actually doing the opposite of manifesting. because, it's the energy we put out is the energy we get back. So if you're releasing that negative energy from your body, you're going to stop attracting it into your life. So yeah, if you do that, and again, it doesn't have to be, you just be 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. It could be a half hour here, half hour there. But the more and more you do it, the more it's going to release, and the more you're going to be freed up, and the easier the energy is going to be able to flow through your body, and that's going to expand your energy field and improve the health of your organs, everything. And another type of trauma I want to get into is they call it ancestral trauma. Or generational trauma. So that's trauma basically from one of your ancestors, someone generations ago. It could even be a parent, but oftentimes it's from like grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents, people from like 6, 7, where they've gone through some traumatic event, and it was so extreme they weren't able to process it, so they passed it down to their children and their children's children. They keep being passed down, and it's sad because you were born with it. It's not even fair. You're fighting a battle that's not even yours, and it's sad. But there's a lot of things you can do. I don't want to get into it too much because of the time, but there's a lot of things you can do to basically get rid of ancestral trauma. And energy healing is great. I would recommend energy healing is the best way to get rid of trauma. But my thing with energy healing is you got to make sure you get someone who's good and who knows what they're doing, because there's a lot of people who do energy healing, and some of them, they kind of they don't really know what they're doing. But then there's some really good ones. And if you get someone who's really good, who's worked with trauma, who knows what they're doing, I mean, that's the quickest way to clear it. The quickest way to raise your vibration is going through energy healing. Because when you release that low vibrational energy from your body, your vibration skyrockets. And even if you're not, even if you're like not focused on gratitude or the positive emotions, when you release a lot of trauma, your body's just naturally in a higher vibration, and your energy field is a lot healthier, and you get healthier. The past couple of years, I've released a lot of trauma because I had a ton, and I'm going to click that by mistake. But yeah, I had a ton of trauma, and the past couple of years, I've done hundreds of energy healing sessions. I do energy healing. I've done it on myself. People have done it on me. And I mean, like, I feel like a completely different person. Like a lot of the aches and pains I used to have, I don't have anymore. I used to get fatigued randomly. I don't anymore. I feel like better than I did when I was a teen. I'm about to be 30 in 3 days, and I feel better than I did when I was 15. Like, and this stuff really works. Food allergies I don't have anymore, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it really works. And also with parking spots, like before I worked on like trauma, I would always have to I would either get a really bad parking spot, or I'd have to visualize, manifest, and it would work some of the time. But now I don't think about parking spots at all. I get the perfect parking spot. And anyone who's been with me in my car can attest to that. In here, because a couple of people in here have. Yep. So So another thing I want to talk about that disrupts the flow of our energy is endocrine disruptors. Okay, so this is big. So our endocrine system is basically our organs in our body that secrete hormones. Like melatonin, dopamine, all kinds of serotonin, etc. So basically, an endocrine disruptor is something that interrupts the flow of the hormones, or they cause certain hormones to spike to levels that are too high, or certain hormones to drop to levels that are too low. And so what that does is it diminishes the health of the body. So like sleep, for example, melatonin, it regulates our sleep. And so an endocrine disruptor, it throws off your melatonin, and it winds up throwing off your sleep cycle. Same with digestion. A lot of the endocrine disruptors, they mess with your digestion, with all energy, all metabolism, all kinds of stuff. So I want to go through some things that are endocrine disruptors. So one of them is, plastics. Pretty much all plastics, unfortunately, have endocrine disruptors. And because you've all heard of BPA, right? And that's why you see a lot of BPA free. So BPA, it wreaks havoc on your body. There's still stuff with BPA in it. Unfortunately, I'm going to go through some of them. But it interrupts your brain function. It throws off your hormones. It throws off your metabolism, your digestion. It really messes with you. So if you have anything plastic, and that's the thing is BPA isn't the only endocrine disruptor. There's a lot, but BPA is like the big one, and they've removed it from a lot of products. Unfortunately, when they removed BPA, they added other stuff that are just as harmful, like BPS. I heard BPF, and then phthalates, I believe they're called. They add those to plastic. So if it says BPA free, a lot of the plastics still have stuff that does the same things as BPA, unfortunately. So if you can, try to avoid like plastic water bottles, Try to avoid those at all costs. I mean, if you have to, if you have no choice, I get it. Okay, if you have no choice, keep them cold. At least keep them cold, because plastic, when it heats up, a lot of the chemicals from the plastic seep into the food, seep into the water. So like if you have like plastic containers or plastic bottles, like do whatever you can to keep them cold, like refrigerated. I think it's okay if they're in the freezer, but don't like sit them on the stove or anything when it heats up. Please don't. Yeah, or in a car, please. No, yeah. And then in the what now? Microwave. Oh God, no, please, not the microwave. Please. Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, not the microwave either. Yeah, and another surprising source of, so like I said, they have other like BPS, BPF. There's a lot of endocrine disruptors in plastic, as well as like non-stick pans. You want to do like stainless steel. If you can, try to drink out of glass or stainless steel. That's healthier for you if you have access to it. Another thing that has BPA, though, if we're talking about BPA, is receipts. A lot of receipts have BPA in it. And so anyone who knows me knows I will never touch a receipt. I never. Like whenever I'm at the cashier, I was like, you can keep the receipt. Like, or if I really need it, I'll say, hey, do you mind putting it in another bag or something? Like that always. And so the reason that is because the thing with receipts is BPA. Not all receipts, but most of them. When you touch the receipt, it gets absorbed into your skin and it starts throwing off your hormones. It spikes your estrogen, and it does it messes with your melatonin, your brain. It does all kinds of stuff. But when you touch the receipts, and so I guess if you do it like every once in a while, it's not going to hurt you. But then there's cashiers, there's people who I see people sometimes when I'm going to the store, they're just walking out of the store with the receipt in their hand. I'm like, oh my God, it's stressful. Yeah, but if you can avoid them, if you are a cashier, then wearing latex gloves could help. Just do whatever you can to protect yourself. Another endocrine disruptor, they're called, what do they call, parabens. So parabens, they add to like skincare products, personal care products like shampoos, lotions, a lot of them, soaps, perfumes. Parabens are basically chemicals they're preservatives. They're a synthetic preservative. And when you put them on your skin, it goes off your hormones too, just like everything else. And so if you can, try to get paraben-free skincare products. I know a lot of them, and the reason it's cheaper to add them in as a filler and whatnot to preserve them. So I get why they do it, but if you can avoid them, please do, because it throws off your hormones. And again, when your hormones are getting thrown off, that's altering. It's messing with your energy. It's disrupting the flow of your energy, and it's messing with your energy field. And it's making you vulnerable. It's affecting your health. So, just do what you can to avoid them. Another thing I wanted to mention with the energy field is, so our energy field around our body, it basically has information. So it has information about us. So what's going on in our body, and it's all going around us at all times. So people who are really sensitive, because there's some people who are really sensitive. Some people are born sensitive. Some people develop that ability. I was the one I developed it. I wasn't born with it, but the past couple of years I've really developed it. So when you're around someone, you're picking up, and most of it's subconscious. You're figuring out all the information about them, and right there, it's all in their energy field. And I'm at a point where now I can pick up stuff about people. Like if I'm doing I do energy healing on other people. So if I need to figure out some information about them, I kind of just tap into their energy, and I'm like, oh, this happened when you were 6, or all that, and I can tell because that's all the information is right there. And so when you begin to change your energy field, when you begin to change as a person, when you release trauma, when you start meditating and visualizing and becoming a different person, that information in your energy field starts to alter. It starts to change. And so people around you start feeling different. People around you start feeling better, because you've all been around someone where you started to come into their presence and you kind of felt uncomfortable, right? And that's why, because you were picking up on their energy. But a lot of people can do that sporadically, but it's doing it consistently when you can really see a lot about people. And I mean that in a good way. I mean that in a good way too. So when you start to change that energy, when you start to change yourself as a person, literally the information around you starts to change, and people start feeling better around you. They start feeling more comfortable around you. You'll notice with people who have done a lot of shadow work, which is a way to different ways to release trauma and whatnot. People who have done a lot of meditating, who have really good energy, like animals, they tend to pick up on that. and animals will be more comfortable being around them. Like dogs sometimes, like when I was a kid, dogs would go crazy around me. But like now when I'm around dogs, they don't, half the time they don't bark, and the half the time they do bark, it's just because, oh, a new human, well, they start barking, and then they're like really friendly with me. Like animals, cats always kind of come up to me, and it wasn't always like that. But because these past couple of years I've really done a lot of changing, my energy's changed, animals pick up on that. So speaking of animals, I thought it was really interesting. They've done experiments where animals, because remember, we broadcast energy, and our energy, we're always affecting each other. Well, all the time. So I thought this was really interesting. So they did this experiment where there were dogs and dog owners, and they found that like when dog owners were coming home, even if it was at random times, because you might think like, if a person's coming home at a certain time, the dog knows that, if they come home at the same time. But they did an experiment where dog owners would come home at random times. And then they found that they put a camera in the house, and they found that when the person was coming home, it could be at any time, the dogs would like start to like kind of spike up a little bit, and they would spend more time by the windows and doors. Even if the person was like 10 miles away, they would still just know. And I thought that was really interesting. And they've had people try to debunk this experiment too, and they've all failed. It's funny. But the original experiment was done by Rupert Sheldrake. And yeah, okay, gotcha. My time's almost up. But the original experiment was done by Rupert Sheldrake, and he's huge. You can look him up, but he's done experiments in parapsychology and all like human consciousness, energy. And the original experiment basically, there was this dog called JT, and Pam was the owner of JT. And what they did was they installed a camera in Pam's house. And Pam's parents were at home, and JT, the dog, sat next to her mom while she went out and did stuff for 3 hours with one of the experimenters. And so finally, one of the people running the experiment was like, okay, it's time to go. And they were about 10 minutes from the house. And I kid you not, and they synced the cameras too. The moment Pam got up out of the bench, the dog, JT, he like jumped up and like ran to the window, and his tail was wagging. Literally, the moment she was like, I'm gonna go home, she gets up from the bench. She's miles away from her house. The moment, like literally, because they synchronized the cameras, the moment she gets up, the dog ran to the window, tail wagging and everything. It was super interesting. And it just goes to show you that we're affecting everything. The people we're connected to, they can sense things about us. Animals sense things. There's more than just the Newtonian way of doing, like, oh, if you can't see it or smell it, it doesn't exist. Like, no, there's things that we don't see that exist, and we're always being influenced. And there's ways to protect ourselves. Like one of the ways is raising our vibration, but there's a lot of other ways too. There's that I don't have time to get into. But yeah, I just want to say when you release that trauma, when you're, practicing feeling heart-focused heart-centered emotions like love and gratitude, that changes your energy. When you meditate, when you eat better, different foods, like an avocado has a higher vibration than something unhealthy, like processed foods have low vibration. So you're putting that into your body. That's also disrupting your energy, especially your second chakra area. You could literally see if you have processed foods, it literally disrupts the flow of energy, and it messes with your energy flow. So when you're eating healthier, when you're thinking better, meditating, it literally changes the information you're putting out to the universe. And you're attracting back different things, and people feel differently at you. So it's a whole different reality. So I know that's about time. So I thank you all for listening. Yes. And any questions? Yes. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful information.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder of how powerful our intentions are, our thoughts, what we put into our body, what we watch on TV, what we listen to the radio, everything.
Everything, yes.
And the manifestation of a dog or a pet from that decision, that corresponding, just like the transfer of the DNA energy of winding and unwinding, that intention, right? And then the decision to leave, and your connection with the dog, and the dog just knows.
They just know, yeah.
It's the simplest thing to do, but it's such a complex concept. Simplest things.
Exactly, simple yet complex, yeah.
It's so powerful.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you very much.
How is craniosacral therapy linked with energy? You consider that energy?
I would, I would, because it is moving the flow of energy. Because from what I know about it, it's the energy that's normally like in your first chakra area, and you're moving it up the spine. And so it's allowing your energy to flow more efficiently. I do know that it sometimes can bring up some pretty because when you're moving that energy, a lot of the trauma gets trapped in those areas. So when you move that energy, it kind of brings that trauma to the surface. So it can be scary for a lot of people, but it's good because it was already there. So it's not like it added anything new. But I have heard of people having, pretty terrifying experiences just from the trauma it brought up, but it's good because then they can release it. So, but yeah, I do consider that energy work. Yeah. And it's really good for your health too, the craniosacral. Yeah. Yes. Anyone else?
Okay.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alan. Okay.